Alrighty folks, I want to welcome you back to another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. So for this video, I wanted to do a video on a mesh network to actually show people what a mesh network actually is compared to a traditional network with a repeater or multiple routers in it. A mesh network is kind of a little bit different, but you can kind of pull off the same things with using things like repeaters. You have your main router and a repeater. You plug your repeater in, you go in and you program this device. Again, this is where one of the big variables is in this device. You have to program it. You have to log in like you would a router. Say, okay, I want you to attach to this Wi-Fi. I want you to rebroadcast as what? What name? Whatever it is. Traditionally, the standard is the repeater will be half the speed as the unit it's connected to. So that is one huge variable here between a mesh network and a repeater network. Mesh network, you set up one main unit, let's say this one. You go in, you program it, and you tell it all the information you want. Parental guards, guest networks, whatever else the features have in the device, depending on what you bought. This is the model I have personally here. I liked it because it was small, just a little cube, looked nice, kind of was artistic, and it had good ratings, and it seemed to be a really nice designed device. The device has where you plug in the power cord, you plug it in, you have your network cable in, and there's a network cable out. So you can connect a device, or you can even connect a switch or another wireless router or whatever you want to this device. I'll get into a video on hooking up multiple wireless routers, configurations and all of that later. Or you can just use a standard router without any DHCP or anything like that. You'll be fine. It'll handle more units plugged in. Speed-wise, those type of things. Behind me, I have 3 different models. They make several different models right now. This is the model I had everywhere. I wanted this kind of model for a certain location where it can plug in to an outlet and I don't have to mount this, put it on a shelf. I don't have to do anything else with it other than this is similar to this. Except for this is the mesh network and not a repeater. What's nice about this is I don't have to reprogram this. I have software in my phone. Once you get it all set up, there's a little barcode on here. You scan that barcode. You press the reset button or whatever button it is on here. Scan it. It'll see it. It'll program this device to talk to this device. There's no more going in reprogramming and this channel and whatever and whatever and whatever you want to configure it, whatever you want to name it. It's all carries the same name. This device that I have will allow you to do 6 of these devices, any combination of them in a system. It says it can support up to 9 or 8, but it doesn't recommend it. It recommends up to 6. So depending on your house layout, depending on where you're at, how things are, if you have a shop in the garage and your internet access is way on the other side, and then you have a bedroom or something way on the other side, you're going to need at least 3. Maybe you have a shed way out in the back somewhere, have security cameras up somewhere, you need another access point. There's variables here. So that's what's nice about a mesh network, is it's not multiple IDs, it's not multiple connect to this device, and then when you're done, you go over to another part, you connect to this device, or some of them will auto scan. Some routers, like this brand here, this Asus, actually have a feature where they say you can mesh routers, but you have to go in and program this router to link to another one of their brand. So here's a little bit of a variable there is. You can actually go out and buy 2 of these and decide, I want network A over here and I want network B over here, and you're fine with that. Maybe you have guests, maybe you have something different on the property, something different, and then you decide later on, hey, you know, that'd be nice to mesh them. You have the equipment to do it, so you can just go in and program them, mesh them, and you could have a mesh network off of these kind of devices. This device does not support that. This is just a wireless router. That's it. No meshing. But you can run cables out into other routers and have other access points and other things that you can do. So I wanted to do a video on this to really show what a difference is, because you can do an access point. This is one that I had originally, that I had over here, that was actually connected to the router I had in the house, that broadcast out here, that then got me further distance. Got interested in the mesh because I had a hard time getting internet around here. There's so much interference, so much something in the air that I can't get internet. I can't get these networks to broadcast. At work and other places that I go to, these things will broadcast for 80 feet, 100 feet, no problem. Here I can't get it to broadcast 20 feet. So I went for the more extreme, I went for the meshing, so that these units can talk to each other and be an access point so that everything can communicate. I had a lot of problems with that. Don't know exactly why. I've done a lot of scanning of networks, done a lot of scanning of stuff, did a lot of testing, and this was the best solution to that problem. So if you're in a high interference area, maybe you're in an apartment building, I would say even like New York, you might have, maybe you are a multi-millionaire, you have a whole floor, you have a big giant suite, something of that sort, and you have all kinds of people around you that have all kinds of interference. You might need something like this where you have multiple units in there, so you have internet in all your different places. Price really isn't too bad. Right now, I think for this unit, it's an older one, it's an AC unit, they're about $200 right now. They have the newer Wi-Fi 6s, they're about $300 and something, $350 or whatever they are. Different unit, taller, different shape, but it's basically the same layout. This model is older and they've come out with different styles. That's what I like about this. I don't need AC, I don't need that kind of speed because my internet is not that fast. This is still fast enough for the internet. Internet I have here just went up to 200 meg, so there's no point in me going to something way extreme. So, only thing I wanted is one location. I had it plugged in and I had the cord that runs down and the box was sitting off on the corner side and the wire was there. So, I saw this unit. I went, hey, if I can replace that with this where I can just plug that in, the same as this type of a device, that's great. So I picked that up. On here, it has a LAN port also. So that might be a feature you might want if you're plugging it into the wall. Somewhere like here, next to my desk, and then you run it out to the computer, that'd be handy. I might end up using this in here in the future to get rid of the one I have here that's sitting on the shelf. Because if I can plug this into the wall and have the free space on the shelf where I can put something else, it's more handy. So, got 2 of these in the unit, along with the other kind of modern unit. They all vary on speeds, how many units they can handle, how much traffic. I believe like this unit says it supports up to 60 or 90. This one I think was up to like 30 or 40. Don't know how many devices you're going to actually have connected all at one time. For me, this was the fastest and the biggest, so I went with that. Had the gig NIC. There's one, the very small model, the lower number, has a 10100 NIC. So that is one of the main key points that you got to watch out for. Because if you have 200 meg internet speed and you have a 10100 port on your device, that's not going to be running 200 meg. Of course, that's the same factor with all of these other things. If you got a Wi-Fi 6 and you got a 100 meg port, guess what? You don't have Wi-Fi 6 speeds if you plug in. So that's some of the factors I wanted to bring up, is to be aware of what is actually on the device. How is the device done? How is it plugged in? Can you network to it? How does it repeat? All of those little tiny features are kind of one of the points I wanted to bring up between a mesh, router, repeater. And then there's a whole nother thing that I actually have some here. Let me grab it. Are these. Now that I'm doing this video, might as well throw that in here. This is a power line, not injector, but you plug your network cable in here and it broadcasts through your power lines to another unit that you plug into the wall that you supposedly can plug into your computer. Problem is, the cabling's too old here. It does not support this. Picked these up because I wanted to play with them a long time ago. Still got them sitting around, a couple sets of them. So here's another factor that can be actually added into this circuit. If you have this device plugged into this device that runs through your power in your housing to another device that can then actually run to a computer, run to an access point, run to a mesh network, run to a switch, run to a router. This is where the networking situations get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why I have so many videos on networking, because there's a lot of different scenarios. Understanding the very basics of the network, understanding what a router is, what a switch is, how it's done, how you get in there, how you configure it, is the key. Because then you can get into some other stuff out there like these that can make things a little bit more complicated, can make things a little bit more easier. So I wanted to bring that up because I'm talking about a mesh network that can make some things easier, can make some things more complicated. This system makes things somewhat easy. You put the software in your phone. I haven't checked to see about my computer if I can do it. I just use it through the phone. You add onto the Wi-Fi that this one's broadcasting, and you go in there and you add your devices to it. Whatever devices. They have 4 or 5 different models. Here I have 3. I think there's at least 2 more. But this is what I have. The other one they have that's upgraded from this is a triple band. So that one has your 2.4, your 5 gig, and your 5 gig dedicated backbone between the devices. I would like to get those, but they're just too expensive for me. for what I would be getting to get rid of these to get something similar to these, except for they have the 5G backbone, 5 gigahertz backbone, isn't worth me paying $300 for, because I already have devices that work for what I need. They're great. So that is one of the features I wanted to bring up, is what features you actually want. Depends on how much you pay. What can you live with? What can you not live with? Same with these. If this is really something you want, you're going to be paying for it. This brand, each router is probably $400 because it's a top-end, high-end name brand router. Plus they have mesh network features and all these other things in them. So you'd be looking at $800 for a pair, depending on the features you want. So this is really where the mesh can get confusing, because if you look, and you'll see other brands out there that'll offer 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, whatever, and they're pretty pricey. And then you really got to look at, what does that unit offer? What does it really offer? Read the feedbacks, do your homework, do everything you can to figure out, is it worth it? This unit did not have all the bells and whistles and everything else that the other units had when these came out, but they had a lot of great ratings. A lot of people were happy with them. They didn't have issues with them. Maybe because the other units had so much in them that you had conflicts and you had problems. So this was basically a basic router settings in here. Guest network, parental network, how it is it bridging, is it meshing, how does it communicate to the original device, to your internet source. So it had those kind of features. It has some port forwarding and some other things that I found that with the updates, it looks like there's some other things that it's added. But to me, that's not really anything I needed here. I can always go with the firewall, or go with a better router with the capabilities I want, other than in the mesh network. So this is really why I wanted to do all of these videos, to explain firewalls, routers, mesh networks, standard networks, Wi-Fi, networking cables. All this stuff comes into play. Because even if you do a mesh network and you have a computer that's not wireless and you want to run a network from the port to your computer, you want to make sure you pick the right stuff. You don't want to slow down your computer. You don't want to have issues. Other issue is if you have an older computer, what kind of NIC card does it have? Some of them don't have gig NICs. Some of them only have 10100 because 10100 was accurate enough and fast enough for a computer. You weren't doing so many high-end things. A lot of computers ended up having gig NICs on them because they weren't that much more expensive. So it was a better choice to put that on there because you had more overhead on that card that you weren't working it so hard. But, of course, some manufacturers went the cheaper way and went with the cheaper card. So you got to know what you have and you got to be careful. So this is why I wanted to do a video on the mesh. This is the mesh. This is a mesh. This is a standard Wi-Fi network with a repeater. This is basically a standard network with repeaters, but it's meshed where it has certain features and certain capabilities where it's not slower like this one is. Now, if you're running Wi-Fi 6 and you put a repeater in that's Wi-Fi 6 that you're getting 1600 meg, and you know you're going to get about 800 off of this, and you have a 200 meg, 300 meg, 400 meg internet connection, you might be okay with that. Going out picking up something like this for 30 or 40 bucks, adding it to what you already have compared to going out and buying something for $400 more to change. But then you get into nowadays all these smart TVs. That is the main reason why I went with these, is the smart TVs. Problem I was having is I got a Roku TV with the wireless speakers, and trying to stream and have the wireless speakers, it was having a lot of issues. The speakers were dropping all the time. They were rebooting. So what I did is I said, okay, you know what? This is right pretty much below the TV. I'll run a network cable into here. Don't connect to the Wi-Fi. Resolved all the problems. TV, I believe, only has a 10100 NIC in it. This has a gig NIC. When I do speed tests, I get about 78 megs connection between this device and the TV. That's more than enough. When I'm streaming and other things, I'm actually looking at the software for this. I'm not using anywhere close to that speed. I'm using like 10 or 15 meg of internet. Sometimes it jumps to 20, sometimes to 30, but I got other things on the network. So I'm well under that 70. I know, okay, I'm good. I don't need to worry about that. The NIC card on the TV, obviously they didn't need a gig NIC. They knew it when they did the TV. So that's where one of these little issues that I have, that, okay, so TVs might have a gig NIC in it. You go out and pay, or 10100 NIC in it, and you go out and buy this that has a gig NIC. You pay extra for this. You go out and buy, maybe you need 4, and you go out and pay extra for this. Maybe you can get away with this, or even the lowest grade model just as an access point. That's something you might want to consider. If you really don't care, you just want to match them all, you want to do it all, go with the big boy, or even the bigger boy that I don't have, the triple band, go for it. But, you know, that's something I want people to be aware of with the mesh networks too. These I don't believe are triple band. I believe they're dual band. I'm not 100% sure. These are just the dual band. This is just 2.4 and 5, the repeater. I'm sure you can go out and find some of these models that have triple band mesh networks too. You have dual band, triple band type of units out there. Triple band usually costs a lot more money because it's more antennas, more equipment to broadcast, and more stuff. Supposedly they're a lot better because they don't hold up the traffic on your 5 gig network. They use a different frequency to talk on. Of course, then that depends on how many devices you actually have and how many devices are actually going to use the 5 gig network. So that's one of the other things. Some of those phones, some of the other things that attach, yeah, they'll use the 5 gig network, and then what speeds are they running? Is it really going to slow down? If I have a 1600 meg connection between this device, or I think it's 13 something, 33 or something like that I have on this one, that really am I really going to be in a place where I'm hurting that bad? I only have a 200 meg internet connection, so I can't imagine it being that bad. I believe when my laptop is now connecting, it's showing I have like an 800 meg connection. I'm not going to be maxing that out because I only have a 200 meg internet connection. This is the older style. I believe it's N. It's not AC. I don't believe it was AC. I believe it was N. But, you know, it really just depends on what you really need, how much tech, how fast. There's other makes, models out there that have really kind of similar things where they have plug-in units, they have different base units, different things. So I really wanted to touch base on this because now, when I first got it, they were all like this. There was two models. There was the Gig and there was a 10100. That's all they had. Now they have a lot more different models. So I really thought this is the perfect time to make a video on this because now this company, what they have, is really a whole lot like this type of a system. You have your main unit and you have all your access points. So, other thing with the mesh network that's different than this device talks to this device. If you have another one over here, that device talks to that device. These two devices do not talk to each other. They just talk to this device. These devices, if they're in range, this device will talk to this device and talk to this device, while this device talks to this device and this device. They'll all talk to each other. So, if this device goes down for some reason, overheats, power goes out, your UPS goes out, your surge protection goes out on this unit, these two devices will continue talking. If you have another one somewhere else, all three of these devices will continue talking. If this one comes back online, all four will start talking to each other. So it's very nice because if you lose this device, the rest will communicate. As long as you don't lose the one that's actually connected to the internet, you're okay. You'll have internet. Most of the time, it just needs a power reset and it's good. It resyncs back up. But that's the other key difference between this kind of device with this kind of device and that kind of device with the other one. Haven't really done too much mesh with these devices because I haven't found too many around. I found this one really cheap, bought it, playing with it, looking at it, trying to figure out all the different settings because new devices from this brand are about $400. So I wanted to sum that up to explain, and I hope that explains enough about a mesh unit. A lot of mesh units can have extra units added to them in the future also. So it makes it nicer than this unit and this unit, because here's one of the factors is if you have this way down here and you have a Wi-Fi repeater here, and then you need something over here and you add another Wi-Fi repeater, you can actually Wi-Fi repeat the Wi-Fi repeater that connects to your device. This is half the speed of the original. So your third device, the newest one you're adding, would be half the speed of the middle. So if you started at 800, you're down to 400, you're down to 200. Unless there's some newer devices out there that don't do that, but that's usually the standard that's out there. So I wanted to sum that up where this does not do that. The mesh does not do that. So that's one of the key differences. But again, comes down to cost. If you can go out and get these for 29 bucks, 39 bucks, and you got, one of these from Goodwill, Salvation Army, some thrift store, or whatever, pick something up like this for, 20 or 30 bucks, and you go out and buy a couple of these, you're talking about like $100, where you're talking about, $200 or $300 for a mesh unit. So depending on how things are, how expensive things are, maybe you can buy them secondhand. Bought these ones secondhand, the newer system, because really all I wanted was one of these to replace this unit, because all that unit's doing is actually repeating. There's nothing plugged into it. Actually, I could probably remove it from the unit where it's at, But the problem is if the unit actually goes out here in my office, then I lose connection with half of the network, with the other side of the property. So that's actually a default access point. Plus, I have enough coverage in the area that when I'm out back with my phone or whatever, computer on the internet, I don't have to worry about any dead zones. So that is really the key important part of this unit, that depending on what you need and how you need it, that if you're just trying to do a relay access point between, let's say you have 2 or 3 buildings on your property, you have your house, maybe you have a barn, maybe you have a workshop further back, you can actually have the nice unit up front in the house broadcasting the internet out, have a nicer unit in the shop, put just a simple plug-in in the barn area, whatever you got in between, and they'll talk to each other. Boom, 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 boom. And you can actually do all of that type of stuff. You can get a 3-unit, 2-unit, single unit, whatever you want. So if you got a 3-unit, use 2 in the main house, use 1 in the back. You can go out, find some of these. The set I had was 3-unit, 2 of these, and that. Put that in, plug it in, have it all communicate, depending on, of course, this is the dual channel, not the triple channel. If you get the triple channel, you probably want to have all triple channel access points or mesh units. So that way they all communicate to each other on that 3rd channel. Supposedly, those will communicate through the 2nd channel to these other units. But if you're already going to go that far, you might as well stick with the same thing. So there's a lot of variables when it comes to this. So I really wanted to go through it because when I first bought it, there wasn't. Now they seem to have more and more varieties out there because people like devices like this where you just plugged them in and it basically repeated, and then, oh, you know, I want to plug something in. If maybe you bring your laptop into a certain area, you want to plug it in instead of using Wi-Fi, or you have maybe a game system you move from room to room where you can plug in. Whatever the weird feature is that you actually are using a device like this, where it's just simply plugged in, you can now buy a device similar in this make and model. So I really thought that was kind of a key point, especially business-wise and other things. You might have situations that change. Maybe you're doing one type of thing in a certain building, then you change. You go from accounting, maybe accounting needs a bigger area where you're going to move them, and you're going to put maybe a research and development, maybe you're going to put something else in there. You know, who knows what you're going to do. Accounting's all networked, all wired. Maybe research just needs a simple Wi-Fi connection. So you take this unit, put it over where they're going to be at. Maybe you add on to the building. Maybe you add a whole nother room for them. Maybe you're in a building complex and you take over the next building next door, the next unit next door. Throw one of these in that side. You have one on your side. You have one over there. Maybe you just need something simple to just do simple Wi-Fi. You can take that unit from over there, put it in the new section where they're going to be, plug something like that in, you're all set, you're all ready to go. So this is one of those scenarios that I wanted to bring up because this is really a flexible unit, a mesh unit. So depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it, this might be something to look at. Because I know a lot of times when you look up, oh, I need internet access, I need a router, I need this, you're going to be looking at a standard router. And then if you say, oh, I'm having issues getting Wi-Fi to a certain area, usually when you look it up on the internet, they recommend a repeater. And then if you really start digging, you'll find stuff mentioning mesh units. So this is the mesh unit. So it's hard to really explain this to anybody. Even this video is pretty long because they are very, very similar. They do the same job. It's just how they do it, how fast they do it, how well they do it, how flexible the units are, what you can do and what you can't do with it. And then it goes to user levels of how hard this would be for someone to change it. How hard is it for me to go from A to B and, okay, I want to take this from here and move it over there, and I want to give people access to this and I want to do that. You know, depending on what you want to do. And of course, then you get down to how many Wi-Fi names do you want to have? So if you want an accounting network just for accounting, and you want an accounting network just for, or a network just for research department that says Wi-Fi is for accounting and it has its own password that's different than the research department, then you're probably looking at putting in wiring and separate router units. If you want it all the same, with the same password, everything for the internet, for Wi-Fi, networking, all that type of stuff, then you're looking at a mesh network. So there is some security differences also, because this is all one network. This can be multiple networks or one network. So let me wrap that one up. Go back and watch all those other videos I've done. They'll express a lot more. These are the key differences I have between mesh network and standard networks. So let me wrap that up. You can see everything, all the different components. Goes back to the wire and power network over power injection, where you can plug that into the wall, feed your network in. I don't really kind of recommend those because I don't know security wise how your network spreads out once you broadcast it out on someone else's network. You're feeding it out on those power lines, and if anybody else has something plugged into that kind of a unit, I'm not too sure what the security features are between those two units. So that's something that you can look at. I'm sure they have probably more things out there. Maybe you can do a VPN or something through it to secure it. I'm not too sure. I don't know a whole lot on those, but it is a factor. So I wanted to bring that up just because it has to do with my next segment that I'm hoping to do pretty soon, is hooking up multiple routers. How to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So wanted to touch base on that. That'll be coming up next. So I hope everybody understands what the mesh network actually is and how it's different from your traditional network and your traditional routers. Alrighty, make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the bell, let everybody know these videos are out there. And if you're interested, shop around, look at the different kinds of devices, find out what features you really need, what you want, and maybe this brand will work for you. Of course, this is for my home. I'm sure this would work for most businesses. It seems to have a lot of flexibility. So that's why I liked it. That's why it's featured. It's not a paid ad for them. But this is what I'm using. This is what I have. It's a good comparison to what the other stuff I have to actually show you what repeaters are, how they look, basically how they function, all of those type of things. So let me wrap this one up. Thank you.